In this explainer, we are breaking down a hidden system of control that works right out in the open. We're calling it the architecture of ambiguity. Now, this isn't just about bad communication or a wishy-washy leadership style. No, this is a deliberate strategy, sometimes even a subconscious one, designed to absolutely paralyze the most capable people on a team. It's like a perceptual fog that rolls in, and today, we're going to give you the map.
In this quote, it just nails the central paradox, doesn't it? This is the core weapon of double signaling. See, it's not an attack on your performance, it's an attack on your perception. The target isn't your work, it's your reality. This calculated dissonance is like a neurological weapon aimed squarely at high performers because their own identity, their need to be competent, to get things right, to understand, that's the very thing the system uses against them. It makes their greatest strength feel like their biggest weakness.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to identify the environment the system creates. We're calling it the perceptual fog. Then we'll look at who it targets and what their experience is like inside the mind reader's trap. From there, we'll deconstruct the machine itself, the three-stage architecture of ambiguity. We'll explore the neurological capture to really get why our brains are so susceptible to this. And then we'll arm ourselves with some diagnostic tools before we get to the one actionable countermeasure.
Okay, Section 1, the perceptual fog. We usually assume that a leader's main goal is to be clear, but in some power dynamics, the real prize, the real battle, is for control over ambiguity. This is where a neurological mist is intentionally created. It's a cognitive environment where the normal rules of logic and communication just get suspended, and the only compass you have left is the leader's unspoken mood.
So let's get a really precise definition here, because this is crucial. This isn't just a miscommunication, it is a system. And it works by pitting two of our most fundamental human drives against each other. First, you've got the need for certainty, that deep biological need to know where we stand, to feel safe. And second, you've got our sense of agency, our drive to be effective, to make an impact. Well, double signaling forces you to trade your agency just to get a temporary feeling of certainty. And that's a trade that slowly but surely destroys your professional will. The person running this system, you can think of them as an ambiguity architect. They don't build with steel and glass, they build with psychological dissonance. And their main tools are this perfectly calibrated trio. They give you explicit permission, a green light, but they pair it with an implicit frown that signals some hidden danger. And it's all held together by strategic inconsistency that makes it impossible for you to find a reliable pattern. See, the goal isn't to direct you, it's to make you burn all your energy trying to solve a puzzle that has no solution. Okay, Section 2, the mind reader's trap. Now let's talk about the person on the receiving end. This system is actually most effective against the most competent, the most conscientious people. And you have to ask why? Well, it's because they're the ones who believe the puzzle can be solved. For them, this isn't just some workplace annoyance. It's a trap that leads to this kind of moral breakdown, where brilliant, capable people just surrender their own judgment to navigate a relationship where someone says one thing but clearly means another. And you can see this pattern play out. It's like a social script. A really talented expert gets verbally empowered. Take the lead, I trust you. But the second they act on that permission, the authority figure starts sending these subtle signals of disapproval. Their posture gets tight, they glance at their phone, their tone just cools off. This kicks off a state of analytical panic. Suddenly, your professional logic, the very reason you were hired, feels socially dangerous, and your primary goal shifts from being effective to just feeling safe. You're no longer managed by your instructions, you're managed by a subtextual baseline that you have to constantly scan and interpret.
The long-term damage from being in this state is what we can diagnose as agency atrophy. And this is a psychologically devastating place to end up. It's that slow, dawning horror when you realize that your desire to do a good job, your conscientiousness, your drive to get it right, has been turned into a weapon against you. The system has literally hooked into your best professional qualities and turned them into your biggest vulnerabilities.
And this perfectly captures the power dynamic that results. It's a dissonance-based leash. The more you play the game, the more you try to decode the constant stream of mixed signals, the tighter that leash gets. Your role completely changes. You're no longer a collaborator or a professional, you become a petitioner, constantly asking for clarification, for approval, for stability. And by doing that, you elevate the leader to the status of an oracle, the one and only person who knows the secret, real truth that you have to guess correctly just to feel safe.
Section 3, the architecture of ambiguity. Okay, so we've seen the environment and we've seen the target. Now we're going to get into a pure diagnostic analysis. Let's lift the hood and look at the actual mechanics. This isn't random.
It is an architecture, a self-reinforcing loop designed to engineer cognitive dependency. This is the systemic failure broken down.
The system that hijacks your agency runs on this three-stage loop. It starts with a semantic anchor, a clear positive instruction. That's immediately followed by an affective veto, which is a non-verbal undermining of that instruction. And the loop gets locked into place by selective reality testing, a reward system that literally trains you to ignore the words you heard.
So step 1 is the semantic anchor strike. The architect doesn't just mention a goal like innovation or ownership. No, they saturate the whole culture with it. It's on the posters, it's in the town halls. They are baiting the hook with a virtuous idea that no high performer can possibly resist. They're basically building a neurological map of your professional desires, just waiting for your brain to say, yes, I want to do that, which is how they get your consent to be managed. Then comes the gut punch, the critical second step, the effective veto. The moment you act on that anchor, the second you actually try to innovate, the leader sends the subtextual no. Not with words, of course. They use ancient biological threat cues that our brains are hardwired to see as danger. A sigh, a sudden coldness in their tone, breaking eye contact. This is where your agency breaks. It creates what you could call neural injustice. Your conscious mind is hearing the words, "I support innovation," but your lizard brain is screaming, "social threat." Your body is saying no, while the words are saying yes.
And here's how they lock it all in. Selective reality testing. Warmth and approval are given out, but only when you abandon the stated goal and correctly guess the real, unstated preference. The reward doesn't come for being the innovator they asked for, it comes for becoming the compliant mind reader they wanted. This forges a powerful dependency anchor in your brain, linking your feeling of safety to ignoring their official instructions. It's basically workplace operant conditioning.
So what's the end game of this loop? The creation of a perceptual monopoly. The team learns over and over that data doesn't matter, logic doesn't matter, the project plan doesn't matter. The only data that matters is the leader's mood. They've successfully shifted the entire basis of reality away from objective facts and onto their own subjective and intentionally ambiguous state of mind. They have become the sole source of what is real.
Section 4. The neurological capture. Now, from the outside, you might be thinking, this sounds crazy, it should be easy to spot and resist. But it is devastatingly effective, even on the most analytical people. Why is that? Because it doesn't target our logic. It hijacks the ancient fundamental wiring of our brains. To understand why we submit, we have to look at the neurology.
At its core, this is the conflict your brain is being forced to resolve. This is the classic double bind. You're given a clear instruction, like take ownership, but every single action you take is met with this implicit punishment, this conflicting vibe that tells you every move you make is wrong. You can't obey both messages, and you can't ignore either of them. There's no logical way out. You are set up to fail. So what does your brain do when it's stuck in this paradox? Well, it takes a mental shortcut. In this case, it's called the heuristic of depth. Our brains are wired with this ancient survival assumption. The subtle, nonverbal cue, the vibe, the subtext is always the deeper, truer information. Why? Because our status radar evolved for survival. Misreading a leader's real intent could get you kicked out of the tribe. This is that critical moment where your need for certainty overrides your need for logic. The brain defaults to the vibe to avoid the terrifying feeling of a social vacuum.
And to cope with the incredible stress of this contradiction, our mind performs one last crucial act of self-preservation. It rationalizes. This is classic cognitive dissonance. Instead of seeing the dynamic for what it is, manipulative or incoherent, which would force us into conflict, we invent a better story. We tell ourselves, oh, my boss is just brilliant but complex, or they're just operating on another level. We do this to avoid a much more painful truth, that we're being chemically managed by our own brain's powerful, cortisol-driven aversion to social conflict.
Section 5. Diagnosing the dissonance. Okay, we've taken apart the system. We get the neurology. Now we shift to practical diagnostics. If you're stuck inside that perceptual fog, how do you get an objective view? How do you recognize this systemic capture? The key is to stop trying to read the vibe and start auditing the agreement. So, what are the objective signs? We're not talking about one bad meeting or confusing email here. We're talking about identifying a persistent, undeniable pattern of disconnection in the environment. We need observable evidence that goes beyond just feelings. So here's what to look for.
The first major diagnostic is what we call the congruence-labor disconnection. Think of your emotional and analytical energy like it's a form of currency. In this kind of environment, you are spending enormous amounts of that currency every single day. Analyzing moods, decoding emails, trying to predict reactions, it's exhausting. The indicator is when you realize the return on that investment is zero. You are putting in massive amounts of social labor, but you're getting no more clarity, no more safety in return. When that emotional bank account is deeply in the red, you've found a critical marker of the trap.
And this reveals the system's central tragic irony, the mind reader's paradox. In almost every single one of these environments, you'll find one person who prides themselves on being the boss whisperer, right? The designated interpreter of the oracle. The diagnostic truth is that this person is almost always the most captured person in the system. They are the system's primary fuel source. They're the one who normalizes the ambiguity for everyone else. Their belief that they alone understand is the very cognitive dissonance that keeps them, and often the whole team, locked in place.
And that brings us to our final section, reclaiming agency. Look, understanding this architecture is the critical first step in neutralizing it, but knowledge by itself isn't enough. The final move here requires a radical, deliberate shift in your focus, away from their subtext and back toward your own actions.
The ultimate countermeasure to the architecture of ambiguity is to become sovereignly literal. Stop dedicating your incredible intellect to decoding the subtext, the size, the moods. Stop reading the emotional weather. Instead, you have to anchor yourself and your actions to what was explicitly said. Act on the literal words you were given. If you were told to take ownership, you take ownership, professionally, cleanly. Now, this isn't about being defiant. It's a diagnostic tool. It forces the ambiguity back onto the architect. It makes the implicit explicit, and it collapses the entire game by refusing to give it the one thing it needs to survive, your energy spent trying to guess the real meaning. Your power isn't in understanding their subtext, it's in your own sovereign adherence to what was actually said. That is how you reclaim the ground of reality.